I just would like to go through the actual health waiver and what happens if one of our applicants cannot meet the health waiver requirement. Now let's go through the distinguished talent visa or global talent independent program subclass A58. So there's only one subclass for global talent, which is A58. In order for the visa application to be approved, all the family members has to meet the requirement. In this instance, we are really focused about health, public interest criteria. So this public interest criteria is really relating to anything about health, character, and good behavior. So that's different numbers here: 408, 1, 0, 2, 3, 4, 7, 9, 10, 21. That's a major change since February this year about public interest criteria. One major change is that used to be 4005 and now it is 4007. Now the difference between these two is 4007 has a waiver clause, 4005 doesn't. So if there's a visa application where require all applicants to meet the public interest criteria of 4005, if they have any health problems, there's no waiver. The visa will be failed. But if we have a 400, means we have a waiver clause. So what does it mean by waiver? So let's say 4007. Okay, so what is a waiver? What's a waiver? Waivers really means you don't meet health requirement, or any of the candidate cannot meet the requirement. So what kind of circumstance people cannot meet requirement? That's something categories here. One is X-ray, and they have TB, HIV, hepatitis B or C, major illness including psychological, not including depression, but psychological, autism, special education. So this is a major illness. And a drug, and a blood pressure. So if any of the candidates, any means main applicants or dependent applicant, if any of them cannot or has this one of the issues or more, then they are not going to meet high health requirement, right? So under normal circumstance, if that they have a public interest requirement of 4005, and that subclass, that one of the candidates has one of the major illness here, their visa will be failed. So it will be refused, regardless whether or not this applicant is migrating. So for instance, I can give you an example of if a candidate in this regard, they divorced and they have a child, but the child is not under his custody, with his ex-wife custody. Therefore, the child is not migrating with him, right? In this circumstance, not migrating at all. But because that Australia operates as one fail, all fail policy, which means regardless of as long as they are a dependent family member, regardless of them migrating or not, if one fails health exam, all the visa application will be failed. So one fail, all fail, regardless of them migrating or not. Now, therefore, health requirement is really important. But luckily, some of the visas, including partner visa, refugee visa, and a global talent, has the 4007, which is really rare. Only a few of them have this, which means they can apply waiver. Waivers really means something like that. It is, although I understand this applicant cannot meet health requirement because they have this one of the major health problem, I can still approve your visa because I'm satisfied with the waiver or your waiver request. And what kind of waiver request? We go through that about waiver request here. Okay, what is a waiver request? Now they are saying the most applicant need to meet public interest requirement, which is related to 405 and 407. In this regard, they say where public interest 405 applies if an applicant or non-migrating, so it doesn't matter. If one of them fail to meet health requirement of the visa, there's no provision for health waiver to be considered. So if PIC 4005 applies, regardless of anyone migrating or not, if they not meet the requirement, waiver will not be considered. So therefore, visa will be failed. Why visa will be failed? Because you don't meet the requirement. And then why, if you don't meet the requirement, it will be failed? Because here it says, if you want the visa criteria to be satisfied at the time of decision, which means criteria need to be satisfied in order for the department to approve the visa. So if you don't meet any of the requirement, any or more one of the requirement or more than one of the requirement, the visa will be refused. The whole visa application will be refused. Okay, so in this regard, we will need to seek waiver. So what is a waiver then? So let's talk about waiver clause here. Sorry, and we will talk about waiver. Sorry. Waiver. What is health waiver? So health waiver saying applies, okay, can only be exercised if for certain visa to which 4007 applies. Okay, so if you have that visa supply has this requirement, you can waive it, and that's certain visas. For instance, certain skill in this regard, it's actually global talent or distinguished talent visa. For business visas and refugee visas, they can, and student visa, because temporary, unless they are actually defense sector student visa, they can have a waiver, which is 4007 temporary shortage. They don't consider a lot of that one. But how to waive? Well, waive is a legal term of waiver, which means we as an immigration consultant specialist, we ask the department, say, hey, I understand one of the candidates has this health problem, which is one of the major, but please ask for please give us that, waive this health requirement so they can meet the requirement, even they have one of the illness. Now they say waiving the need to meet the health, yeah, will have implication. We really going to stress about Australia healthcare and community system. No, they will say, therefore, only officers who are ELA 1 level or above, and they can have a self-waiver. Therefore, health waiver itself will take a little bit of time. Why? Because the department going to appoint a Commonwealth health officer to analyze application, and they can't. Who can do the waiver request? Then we'll call when a waiver can be exercised. Okay. If, for instance, that they have failed this requirement, for instance, if we have high blood pressure, or for instance, child has the autism, so they have to. They say, I believe you failed the health exam, but I can consider that waiver if you meet this requirement. It's first, you're likely if the applicants unlikely to result in healthcare and community costs that is regarded significant. So if the cost of treatment, it's not significant. Okay, in this current significant, policy is 49,000 Australian dollar in 10 years time. In 10 years time, if the cost is less than, and we will need to address this. So a whole waiver submission is about addressing everything to persuade department to give us a waiver, or prejudice the access to Australian citizen or permanent resident to such service. So if the candidate, we can tell them, no, we are unlikely to result a significant cost to the community, and we are unlikely to prejudice access to Australian citizen and permanent resident to such service. And then it will not undue cost to the Australian community or undue prejudice. Then they can be waived it. Okay, so if a health waiver should be in a last stage in visa application prior to the grant of refusal, which means once we got all satisfied, then we do the health waiver. Although preparation can be done beforehand, because we will need to consult and we will need to write information for this one. So, and once a health waiver is made, which is the case, the visa should be decided as soon as practical. So as they need to make a decision, they can't just wait forever. We provide sufficient information and supply medical report. They should calculate. If they not, we are going to calculate the cost. So they also say if more than one health waiver must be considered together. So well, in this case, it's not, right? Which means if that one or more people actually failed health exam, and they have to be considered as a total cost. Now, what is a significant cost? They has definition in this regard. I'm not going to go through. That current one is not 51,000. As the September 2021, the policy for threshold is 51,000. If the candidate is applying for a permanent visa, that duration should be calculated not life term. It's actually 10 years. So how much the patient will cost Australia Medicare system for more than 51,000 in a 10 years period. Now, then we will cost about prejudice. We will need to address them. We will need to address them. And considering a waiver, this is actually a normal process. It's not, although it's quite difficult because it's not something that experienced every day today. The waiver has to be done. And if we have a waiver clause for that subclass, it's actually a good thing because we have opportunity. As I mentioned here, if the subclass contains 4005, then we don't have a waiver. If we don't have a waiver, meaning if we don't have a waiver, that visa going to be refused and we don't have a chance. So therefore, in your case, in this scenario, I think because it has waiver, which give us rights really to consider and then to access this information. And our consideration is really about, especially when I am experiencing that the waiver, the candidates or applicants is a child. That gives us a lot of confidence because child sometimes they grow up very fast and they cope really well. And they have development, they have their own development, something they can improve dramatically over the, therapy and in something, good health system, good support, they'll progress. So we actually can convince department on that. So I hope this one help you. That will be a little bit delay in terms of health assessment because the department will need to allocate another person who has a higher level, which is ALI 1 level. This is the person who's a Commonwealth medical officer. That's a tight time for that final stage. But because the law actually stipulates that must make the decision as soon as possible, that time normally we are not expecting them to be more than 2 months. They have to make a decision. In this regard, I think in your child's situation, we do have confidence to waive health. And I think that's the best time. I'm not sure other visas, if you're not required visas for other countries, but Australia visas has this health requirement. Okay, thank you. Bye.